Good morning. Let's start the daily discussion. The first topic is educational crisis in India. Education stands at the linchpin of societal advancement, wielding the power to shape nations by equipping individuals with knowledge and skill. In India, the educational system grapples with multifaceted challenges, ranging from political interference to the pervasive rise of tuition culture. Okay, in education sector crisis, what is the crisis? The state of India's education sector is precarious, marked by a dangerous amalgamation of reckless commercialization and politicization. So, education sector has been massively commercialized and to some extent politicized because either there is a lot of political interference or politicians are right now heading or having open range of educational institutions, and the policy is formulated as per the benefit of those people who are managing those educational institutions. A meticulous step-by-step strategy and a national consensus are deemed imperative to rebuild the sector. Recent events underscore the limitations of an over-reliance on technology, with edutech startup succumbing to pitfall like greed, compromising the very essence of education. So edutech startup have played a very dynamic role, and they have reshaped the educational scenario in the country. Okay, so that needs to be that needs a total turnaround. While acknowledging technology potential, caution is urgent against viewing it as a panacea for deeply ingrained issues in the education system. The critique extends to the market-driven approach, prioritizing technology over substantive investment in quality education. The burgeoning tuition industry, currently valued at ₹58 billion, serves as a stark testament to systemic failures exacerbated by governmental policies that inadvertently devalue high school examinations. Parental preference for tuition center. A disconcerting trend emerges as parents increasingly favor tuition centers over traditional schools. So right now students are enrolled in tuition classes and school becomes secondary for them. The tuition classes became primary for them, and the schools where they learn the things earlier become secondary. They will attend the tuition classes and attend the school in proxy. The toll on mental health and the rise in stress-induced suicides among the students, consequences of the pressure and humiliation rampant in these unregulated centers are pregnantly highlighted. So like the quota issue, where the number of students commit suicide every year, and right now a committee has been appointed for that. The government's failure to monitor and uplift the quality of teaching further contributes to the proliferation of tuition centers and the concerning reliance on applications. Students are using more the applications for education than in the classroom, where the students learn through enjoying the things. So in a classroom, normally the students learn through enjoyment. They learn through enjoyment, but in the tuition, so this always education should be with massive enjoyment. But at present, students are reading for reading sake, but there is hardly any scope for enjoyment. They are not enjoying the thing they are supposed to do, because education earlier was a thing which provided the scope for learning through enjoyment, but that enjoyment is gone these days. Okay, the government's failure to monitor and uplift the quality of teaching further contributes to the proliferation of tuition centers and the concerning reliance on applications. Socioeconomic divide and quality disparities. The existing education system inadvertently widens the gap between the well-educated hailing from the affluent families and the less educated from the modest background. Across categories, the quality of teaching is alarmingly subpar, fueling the mushrooming of tuition centers. Reference to the SR report 2023 reveals disturbing statistics regarding students' proficiency level in fundamental skill. Students are even not proficient in fundamental skills like calculation, like writing, like common communication. So they are much lacking. Inadequate infrastructure in school. According to US UDISC survey 1920, only 12% of schools have internet facility and 30% have computers. 42% lack furniture. 23% lack electricity. 22% lack ramp for disabled, and 15% lack wash facilities. High dropout rate. Dropout rates are high in primary and secondary level. National Family Health Survey 5 report 21.4% of girls and 35.7% of the boys drop out due to disinterest in studies. They drop out from the school because they don't feel it interesting to continue their study. The brain drain. Intense competition for tough institute leads many students to pursue education abroad. Quantitative expansion exists, but qualitative aspect lag behind. Mass illiteracy. Despite efforts, around 25% of the Indians remain illiterate, leading to social and digital exclusion. Even today, 25% of Indians remain illiterate. Literacy in India is counted as the person's ability to read and write. Okay, but that is not the in true sense. That is not literacy. Neglect of Indian languages. Indian languages are underdeveloped. English dominates science subjects, creating unequal opportunities. Standard publications in Indian languages are lacking. Lack of technical and vocational education. Generalistic education system leads to a lack of technical and vocational education. This contributes to a rising number of educated unemployed individuals. Unaffordability. Merger of incomes in rural area prioritize work over education. Lack of awareness and financial stability hinders enrollment, especially in high education. Gender inequality. Despite efforts, gender inequality persists, driven by poverty and cultural practices like female infanticide and early marriage. Lack of sanitation. Sanitation issues in school across the country hinders educational progress. Comprehensive solution for educational revitalization. Social practice participation and volunteerism. Engage senior citizens, civil society and volunteers to contribute to the educational ecosystem. Leverage the collective wisdom and experience of society to bring fresh perspective into the teaching and learning process. Conditional incentive for parental involvement. Tie cash doors to women to the academic performance of their children, fostering a direct link between the parental engagement and financial benefit. Encourage parental involvement as a cornerstone for a child's educational policy. Teacher accountability and reduce government interference. Make teacher accountable for results, emphasizing the role of educators in shaping the future. Minimize governmental interference to allow educational institutions the flexibility to innovate and adapt to evolving needs. Inclusive budget allocation. Despite the critical state of education in India, the nation allocates a mere 2.61% of GDP to this fundamental sector. So only 2.61% of the GDP is devoted to education. So that makes the sector crash crunch, and crash crunch lead to and crash crunch is not favoring Okay. So despite the critical state of education, so this is what, so only 2.6, but the new education policy has have a plan to spend 6% of GDP for education. So a reference to global standard advocate for countries to dedicate at least 6% of their GDP to education. The new education policy 2020 has a provision to allocate 6% of GDP towards education. Double the education budget, recognizing that sustained growth and development hinge on well-educated populace. Allocate resources imaginatively, ensuring that increased budget translate into tangible improvements in infrastructure, teacher training, and educational resources. Experimental learning approach. India's participation in the COP28 was marked by distinctive stances on crucial declarations, while the UAE Declaration on Climate and Health, signed by 123 countries, committing 1.1 billion to address climate health issues, gained momentum. India opted not to sign. The national was rooted in the potential impact of healthcare infrastructure, particularly in rural areas, as reducing greenhouse gases emission in the health sector could compromise essential healthcare services. Okay, this is about the social sector development. Okay, so implementation of national education policy shift from 10 plus 2 to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So earlier the 10 plus 2 plus 3, the system of the new education policy has been changed to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Okay, so bring preschool age group formally into the education, because right now students will go to school, children at the age of 3. This is called the preschool education. Education employment corridor, integrate vocational learning with mainstream education, provide mentorship, guide students towards a suitable career path, reducing the language barrier, give equal importance to Indian languages alongside English, establish special publication agency for translation, learning from the past to the future, draw inspiration from the holistic Gurukula system, focus on value like self-reliance, empathy, creativity and integrity, implement system of assessment that evaluate practical knowledge application. Conclusion. In summation, the imperative of prioritizing education in India is underscored, urging both political attention and substantial in the fiscal resources, because education sector development needs a huge funding, and that funding can come only from the government through higher allocation from the GDP, so from the in the budgetary part. So the inadequacy of current spending staggering at 3% of the GDP over the past 2 decades is highlighted. Real growth, development and global leadership hangs upon the commitment of doubling the budget and resounding collective demand for an imaginative and encourageous approach to education. Until these conditions intersect, India risks perpetuating the illusion of all is well while grappling with a profound and systematic educational crisis. Although the government at the center and the state are giving an impression that everything is fine, all is well, but in reality, things are not what is being seen. Okay, so that need to be changed. So real growth, development and global leadership hing upon a commitment to doubling the budget and a resounding collective demand for an imaginative and courageous approach to education. Until these conditions intersect, India risks perpetuating the illusion of all is well while grappling with a profound and systematic educational crisis that is looming large over Indian education scenario. The next is how the United States climate response has been lacking. So climate is recently the COP20 it was held at Dubai in United Arab Emirates. So since the beginning of this concern, since the Earth Summit in 1992 till 2023, so it is nearly more than 30 years. And in these 30 years, we have polluted more than we have reduced it. So United States has been one of the biggest laggard on climate action. Not only has it not cut down on its emissions so far, it has done little to meet its financial and technological obligations. When the loss and damage fund was open for capitalization at the recently concluded COP28, but the loss and damage fund climate meeting in Dubai, hosted by UAE, promised 100 million US dollar, as did Germany, France, and Italy committed about 110 million each. United Kingdom promised about 60 million for this. Okay, so in contrast, at that United States could muster was 17.3 million. Even Ireland, Denmark, and Norway put in more money into the fund than USA. Looking at its size of the economy and the amount of pollution it is releasing, US has only promised 17.3 million. Other countries promise much more in comparison to the emission they are releasing. US is one of the major polluter, but it committed only 17.3 million to this loss and damage fund. Its small contribution to the loss and damage fund was particularly jarring, but this was not the first time that United States was found wanting in playing its expected role in the global fight against climate change. As the country with the largest share of historical emissions and the world's biggest economy, United States carries a greater burden than any other nation in taking climate action. Both the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change (UNFCCC) and its 2015 Paris Agreement, that called the Paris Climate Agreement 2015, repeatedly mentioned that developed countries must take the lead in fight against climate change. So US has a major role to play, but US is always backtracking from its responsibility. Okay, this is the PTF condition. But far from taking leadership, United States has been one of the biggest laggards on climate action. Not only has it not cut down on its emissions so far, it has done little to meet the financial and technological obligations. It never ratified the Kyoto Protocol and therefore never abided by the emissions reduction target assigned therein. The Paris Agreement was negotiated largely on terms dictated by it, but it still worked out. It has rejoined the Paris Agreement. So, USA was a signatory to the Paris Agreement, but it was a country during the previous presidency. It decided to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. But no doubt, so good news is that so it joined subsequently, but okay. So the Paris Agreement. बढ़िया 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 छत बढ़िया छत बढ़िया ना Okay. The Paris Agreement is negotiated largely on terms dedicated by it, but it still worked out. It has rejoined the Paris Agreement. USA decided to, and there is a time when during the Donald Trump's period, USA so quit the Paris Agreement. But fortunately, when Biden came to power, USA rejoined. The lack of enthusiasm from the United States is one of the biggest reasons why the world is not on track to meet the 2030 targets. Historical responsibility. Despite China emitting much more in the last 15 years, okay. So, despite China emitting much more in the last 15 years, the United States continue to have the largest share of historical emission. So, although China and India are the present big emitters, but USA as a country which has emitted a lot in the past, accounting for more than 20% of all carbon dioxide emissions since 1850. Around the early 1990s, when the first international rules on climate change were emerging, US accounted for more than 30% of the historical emissions till that time. 30%, one country. Broadly in line with the polluters pay principle, developed and industrialized country with the maximum share of historical emissions at that time were asked to take the lead in reducing emission. So till the Kyoto Protocol, because Kyoto Protocol was only binding on the developed countries who have emitted a lot. That group of about 40 countries came to be known as the Annexure 1 country because they were listed in Annexure 1 of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The 1997 Kyoto Protocol, the precursor to the Paris Agreement, has assigned specific emission reduction target to each of these countries. Okay, see, so share of emissions, this is what USA, European Union, China, Brazil, India. Okay, this is the present share of emission from 1850 to 2021. Still, as per the sharing, so this is the highest polluter, followed by European Union, then China, then Brazil, then India. But since the US never ratified the Kyoto Protocol, it was not bound by these targets and it did nothing to reduce the emission but voluntarily. A recent assessment by UNFCCC showed that by 2020, when the Kyoto Protocol came to an end, the next one country as a group has reduced their net greenhouse gas emission by about 25% from 1990 level. The contribution of United States in this was next to nothing. Its emission came down just by 0.4% during this period. Whereas other developed countries reduced it by 25%, US reduced by only 0.4%. That too after including the effect of COVID pandemic. In 2019, US emission were about 6% higher than in 1990. There are other Annexure 1 countries which have fared worse, 8 of them including Canada and Turkey. But the United States alone emits about 4 times the combined emission of all 8. The US still maintains that it has met its 2020 emission target, that is, because it had pegged its target 17% reduction by 2020 to a 2005 baseline, unlike most other Annexure 1 countries that use a 1990 baseline. The United States let its emission grow by about 15% between 1994 and 2004 and then made some reductions from that peak by claim victory. Had it not been for the COVID induction drop in 2020, the annual emissions of the United States in 2021 would have been well over 1990 level as it indeed was in 2019. This year's emission gap report, an annual publication of the UN Environment Program, showed that the US emissions were estimated to be 1.6% higher in 2020 than the previous year. No doubt, US is reducing the emission, but its emission reduction level is much less than expected from a country like USA. Modest target, the target for future are not very ambitious either. United States has promised to reduce its emission by 50 to 52% by 2030 on 2005 levels. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says global emissions have to drop by at least 43% by 2030 from 2019 level to retain any hopes of keeping a 1.5 degrees Celsius alive. The upper limit of US emission reduction target 52% or 2005 levels translate to less than 46% from 2019 baseline. That is just about doing the bare minimum and nowhere close to the leadership role that it is expected to play. And even that is not certain to be achieved. According to the same UNFCCC assessment mentioned earlier, current policies and measures by the United States could result in just about 20% reduction from 2005 baseline by 2030. The United States is banking heavily on the Inflation Reduction Act, which is passed recently to enable the emission reduction that could help it to achieve the 50-52% target. Against equity justice, okay, even if it does, the bare minimum act of United States means that the global target of 2030 is almost certain to be missed. Meeting the global target from here on would mean every country, even developing countries, would have to match the effort made by the United States. It is violative of the principle of equity and justice enshrined in UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. The United States indeed has been acting actively in the negotiating rooms to do away with the differentiation between the developed and the developing country that is at the heart of the international climate change framework. Even in its public utterance sometimes, the United States has suggested that every country must be held equally responsible, at least for certain aspect of climate action, and subjected to the same standards. This is the reason why at every climate change conference, a lot of energies of the developing country is consumed in fighting to prevent further dilution of the differentiation principle. Because the developed and developing countries are fighting regularly at every climate conference for this matter. Fossil fuel guzzler. So while Saudi Arabia took most of the blame for attempting to prevent a mention of fossil fuel phase out in the final outcome from Dubai meeting, the United States has largely got away with its record on fossil fuels. It continued to be the largest producer of fossil fuel, oil, natural gas and coal taken together, and more than 80% of the energy needs are still made by these sources. This has remained like this in the three last decade. This is continuing. Yet the United States has never faced the kind of pressure that India faces for its use of coal. In fact, till 2015, the US was using as much coal as India, and it is only in recent years that it has reduced its reliance on coal a little. But the shift away from coal has been compensated largely by natural gas and oil, and only partly by renewable energy. But India is shifting to renewable energy from fossil fuel. Despite constant criticism, India has a far better record on fossil fuel than the United States. Data from International Energy Agency show that about 27% of the India's energy needs are being met by non-fossil sources compared to less than 20% in the case of United States. So at present, 27% of India's energy needs are fulfilled from the non-fossil fuel, that means from the renewable sources. Okay, but in case of India, so in case of USA, still 27%. So to only 20% is from non-fossil fuels. That means so at present even India is on the right path than USA. No money at the world's leading economy, home to some of the largest global corporate house and the biggest influence in international financial institutions, the United States is uniquely positioned to mobilize financial resources for climate action. But just like emission reductions, it has not delivered on its climate financing obligation as well. A day after facing criticism for its paltry contribution to the loss and damage fund in Dubai, the US announced a US $3 billion commitment to the Green Climate Fund for the next 4 years, by far the largest sum from any single country. Being criticized or facing criticism at the Dubai conference of the COP20 for non-contributing to the global emission reduction targets measures, so USA has declared $3 billion to this Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund is the main financial instrument of the Paris Agreement, geared towards raising funds to help developing countries carry out their climate action. It has raised about $10 billion for its first 4-year cycle of funding climate projects. In Dubai, it was raising money for the next 4-year cycle. The US has promised $3 billion for the first round of capitalization, as well as delivery only $2 billion. But the Green Climate Fund handles a very small fraction of the money that is required for climate action, estimated to be few trillion of dollars every year. It was the United States that way back in 2009 had come up with a 100 billion per year figure to be mobilized by the developed countries from 2020 onward, but that target has never been achieved through developed countries claim that it was reached in 2022. Developing countries complain of double counting, repurposing, or greenwashing. A major concern has been the lack of money for adaptation activities. In Glasgow, a previous one, in Scotland, the COP27 last year, countries had decided to double the financial flow to adaptation, but a recent adaptation gap report shows that far from doubling, the money meant for adaptation has seen a year-on-year decline. The United States was among the countries that ensured that no separate financial proposal were included in the decision on global goal on adaptation that was reached in Dubai this year. Okay, and the next topic is India's first winter scientific Arctic expedition launch. Honorable Union Minister flagged off India's first inaugural winter scientific expedition to Arctic. Okay. It is the Arctic from the Ministry of Earth Science headquartered in New Delhi. The expedition aims to conduct unique scientific observations during the polar night, November to March, providing insight into climate change, space weather, sea ice, and ocean circulation dynamics and ecosystem adaptation. Winter operation expansion after the Himadri review. Since 2008, India has maintained the Himadri research base in Arctic, primarily hosting scientists during the summer. Encouragement for scientific prose expansion. Union Minister highlighted the strategic importance of the Arctic and honored Indian scientists to play a vital role in addressing global challenges. He interacted with a number of the Arctic expedition departing for Himadri on December 19, 2023, expressing wishes for a safe and productive stay. The first batch includes researchers from the NCPOR, IIT Mandi, IITM Pune, and the Raman Research Institute, Bangalore. India among the nations with extended Arctic operation. With the launch of the winter expeditions, India joined select nations with extended in-time operation in the Arctic. Research area includes atmospheric, biological, marine and space science, environmental chemistry, cryosphere studies, terrestrial ecosystem and astrophysics. The NCPOR received 41 proposals for winter Arctic research this year, shortlisting 15 after thorough peer review and expert selection committee processes. What are the subjects that were taken for research at this expedition was decided after much review of by the peers and expert guidance on them. Then the next is Operation Greens. The government has been implementing central sector scheme Operation Greens under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana since 2018-19. It is a price fixation scheme that aims to ensure farmers are given the right price for their produce. It focuses on organized marketing of tomatoes, onion and potato top products by connecting farmers with the consumers. Nodal Ministry, Ministry of Food Processing Industries. It aims to enhancing the value realization of farmers and minimizing post-harvest losses. Because in India, 50% of the vegetables they perish due to in the post-harvest period due to lack of cold store supply chain or the cold store logistics supply chain. And to promote farmer producer organizations, agri-logistics, processing facilities and professional management. The scheme has two components: long-term intervention integrated value chain development project, enhancing value realization of farmers by targeted interventions to strengthen production clusters and farmers producer organization FPO, farmer producer organizations, and connecting the farmers with the market. Reduction in post-harvest losses by creation of farm gate infrastructure, development of suitable agri-logistics, creation of appropriate storage capacity linking consumption centers. Increase in food processing capacity and value addition in value chain by creating farm linkages with identified production clusters. Short-term interventions. The objective of the scheme is to protect the growers of eligible crop from making distress sell and to reduce post-harvest losses. Okay, because Farmers are at loss on both the counts due to natural calamity as well in case the crops are better. So especially on the post-harvest losses are also huge for the farmers. And the natural calamity is extending this, the unseasonal rainfall, cyclonic storms, and dry spell. They have major impact on the income of the farmer. Through this, they want to ensure a remunerative price for the farmers, especially the top. Initially, top means tomato, potato, onion, but subsequently other vegetables and perishable items are added to this. Then the Pat Mitra app, Ministry of Textile launched the Pat Mitra app with aiming to empower jute farmer by providing them with a technological platform. The Pat Mitra is a mobile application developed by the Jute Corporation of India Limited. The app is designed to support jute farmers by providing information about agronomy, minimum support price, and the latest agricultural practices. The app is available in 6 languages and all functionalities are free of cost. It also allows farmers to track the status of their payment for the raw jute sold to Jute Corporation of India under the minimum support price operation. The app highlights key features such as the jute grading details, farmer focus scheme for eye care, weather forecast, the JCI purchase centers, Jute Corporation of India, purchase center locations, and a chatbot for farmers' inquiries. And coming to the question, India's digital transformation presents both opportunity and challenges. Discuss the challenges faced by India in bridging the digital divide and the importance of analog foundations for successful digital economy. India's rapid digital transformation presents both opportunity and challenges. While the country boasts a significant online market and a thriving fintech landscape, it also faces issues of inequitable access. Okay, so India's rapid digital transformation presents both opportunity and challenges. While the country boasts a significant online market and a thriving fintech landscape, it also faces issue of inequitable access and the need of address fundamental foundational analog infrastructure. As India approaches its 100th year of independence, policymakers must consider key principles to shape effective digital strategy and policies. Addressing the digital divide, India's digital acceleration has accelerated inequality in access to technology. The State of India's Digital Economy report emphasized the importance of strong analog foundations that support the digital economy. This includes physical and social infrastructure such as reliable power supply and improved level of literacy, affordability, and digital skills. Government initiative, the Indian government has set a target to provide 4G network coverage to all uncovered villages by 2024. Digital literacy initiatives are being strengthened through training, internship, and apprenticeship program. Efforts are also underway to address cybersecurity and financial frauds, including raising awareness and building technical security measures. India stack and digital public infrastructure. India has been a trailblazer in developing technology at scalable through initiative like India Stack, which manages identity verification, payment, and data exchange. However, the focus should shift from merely increasing the number of users and participants to evaluating the impact on people's lives, including financial security, health benefit, and overall well-being. Principle of policymakers: balance approach. Not everything requires a digital solution. Policymakers should carefully examine the need and purpose before prioritizing digitalization. The preoccupation with digital only approaches should be challenged because complete digitization is not possible in a country like India, because there are so many challenges to this, starting from the infrastructure to the literacy level of the people, and also the poverty, the economic condition of the people. The preoccupation with the digital only approach should be challenged. Consultative policy making: beneficiaries should be at the center of the policy making approach. Efforts should be made to strengthen consultation and adopt a ground of approach to policy formulation. Adaptive policy and agile regulatory framework: policymaker and regulators should embrace adaptive policy and agile regulatory framework to keep pace with rapidly evolving technology and business models. Regulatory innovation, including sandboxing and participative regulation, should be fostered. Evidence-based policy: adequate data on the digital economy is crucial for meaningful analysis and assessment. Transparency, regular monitoring, and impact assessment should be institutionalized to build accountability and establish long-term sustainability. Conclusion: India's digital transformation presents both immense potential and challenges. By adhering to those principles, policymakers can ensure that digital strategies and policy not only promote economic growth and also addresses inequalities, prioritize people's well-being, and foster long-term sustainability. Okay, so that is what, because India is a country, although we are going for a digitalization, but full digitalization is not possible on the part of India. That is why we should find the midway, and in our approach towards being nearer to digitization, we should ensure that the common people, the common Indian, okay, is not deprived of these things. Then the coming to the MCQs, with reference to the Kusum, PM Kusum scheme, consider the following. The scheme is demand driven and open for all farmers of the country. That is right. The scheme is implemented through three components to add a solar capacity. The main objective of PM Kusum Yojana is to assist the farmer in installing off-grid solar pump in rural areas, thereby decreasing their dependence on grid-connected area. The barren land of the farmer will be used to install around 10,000 megawatt solar plants. So here all the four are correct. Recently, an application called the Patmitro launched by government for which farmer community? So it is launched for the jute farmer. How many of the following are the objective of the International Monetary Fund? Foster global monetary cooperation, that's right. Secure financial stability, correct. Facilitate international trade, correct. Promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, all the four are correct. Arrange the following country in ascending order according to their share of historical emission. At the top is yes, it is 4 3 2 1. Okay, so one is ascending order. So ascending means from bottom to top, from low to high. So it is 4 3 2 1. Okay, hence India, then Brazil, then China, then USA. A volcano known as the Praga-Dasilpi, recently seen in news, located. It is located in okay. Then 6, with reference to the Voice of Global South Summit, consider the following statement. This summit focuses on sharing the key outcomes achieved in various G20 meetings with other country of the global south. This is okay. India will host the second Voice of Global South Summit. The theme of the inaugural leaders sessions Global South Together for One Future. Here only one is correct. Consider the following country: Egypt, Sudan, Kuwait, Oman, Jordan. So how many of the above country are a boundary with the Red Sea? So only two share boundary. No, no. With reference to the Asian grouping, consider the following statement: they do not have a separate flag. That's incorrect. India is a part of Asian grouping. No. The 10th Asian Defense Minister meeting plus ADM plus was held in Singapore. All the three are incorrect. So correct is none. Cranes, Gansu, Sana, New Zealand, Mongolia, Yemen. So here only one pair is correct. Correctly matched. Then which of the following state do not share the boundary with Myanmar? So Indian state of Assam don't share boundary with Myanmar. Thank you for watching. Keep watching regularly to update yourself.